No, so your voice is audible.
It's audible, right?
Yeah.
Okay. So when we talk about the APIs and the applications that we are using it, whether it's a mobile app or a website or any other kind of thing, we can assume an API to be a waiter if we have, let's take an example for a restaurant. So when we go to a restaurant, we get our menu card and a waiter comes to us, right? We give our whatever we desire to eat, the order to the waiter, then waiter takes it to the kitchen and vice versa brings the our order if it's available. Otherwise, it says, okay, this is not available. I would recommend this, or you can try this, that stuff. So that is what an API actually is. It is a middleware that helps to communicate between our application and our server. So no matter what kind of response or request we make to the waiter, it is bound to give a response, whether it's a positive response or a negative response. And on a basis of that, we can actually provide our feedback. Okay, this is working fine, this is not working fine, this is supposed to work this way, but it's still not working. So any doubt here regarding the example?
You can ask question whenever any. You can raise your hand for asking any questions.
Yeah. Okay.
It might be no one has any doubt.
So has anyone ever built any project using an API project or a backend project with any kind of languages or frameworks? If you could simply write yes or no or raise your hands, that works. Okay. No. Okay. No, sir. Okay. Gotcha.
Those who have raised your hand, they can unmute yourself and say whatever they want.
Yeah. A very basic one. That's nice. No. So basically, when we create our app, we get different kinds of endpoint. There could be a endpoint for just posting, one for fetching, one for deleting the content, one for updating the content. That is called a CRUD application. CRUD application is a very simple and a basic app that we build when we are moving on or starting our journey in a backend field. It's a very nice personal project for someone. So the whole backend is based on these four operations. Now, when I talk about the CRUD applications or the CRUD operations, there are most popular ones used for social media content. A social media application using a CRUD application where or a blog application where we create a different web pages based on the postings that we are doing. Now, how to test those? Since we are using or creating our applications, the endpoints could be different and such stuff. How could we actually check it? So for those stuffs, we have some applications called Postman and a Hopscotch. So before I move on, how many of you have heard about Postman or what it does? Even if you do not know what it does or how to use it, have you heard of it? You could raise your hands or just write yes or +1 in the chat. Yeah, sure, Gautam. If that works, you can rejoin. Hmm, that's nice. Seems like Postman's post awareness program works fine. Okay, okay. I'll speak in Hindi as well. So do you want? Okay. I'll speak in both, so no worries. Uh, Samir, should I repeat the past part in Hindi, or is it, or others want it as well?
Those who have any doubt, yeah, they can unmute yourself and they won't say anything. Anak, you have any doubt? Or you can unmute yourself.
Like if it's not an issue with everyone, then I'll continue in English itself. Okay then. So there are two ways to test whether our application is working fine or not locally. That is by using a hopscotch and a postman. Okay, let me give you an example to you. So when we go to this site, could you explain? So after slash, like google.com/search. So search is a endpoint and the rest is a part of a domain. When I say we are using hopscotch or postman to test our endpoints, that essentially means like we are going to make some request to this URL as a whole to verify whether okay things are working fine or not, or what kind of response we are getting. For example, if you go to this site and search Jabalpur, what is the expected response that you get? You can unmute yourself and answer. Mm, that's right. So that what when you're making a search or making a request to on that endpoint, basically it is fetching from its database. This kind of operation or IIT, that's nice. So this kind of operations basically is called get operation or a fetch operation, in which it is requesting to get a to get a data or from the related queries that we have provided it. And in the response, if uh, everything would be not available, you would get could not Google could not find the results, right? But in this case, you have a result. That's why it's saying showcasing you the important places, taking the websites of different organizations, your college itself. Now, if you type something gibberish and search, what would happen? There's a very less probability that it will actually provide you with an relevant information, right? So those kinds of stuff is generally tested and through hopscotch and the postman and comes under the first field, that is unit testing. We use unit tests to check small functionalities, class and modules. Any doubt in this?
Anyone who have doubt, mean they can unmute yourself and tell anything.
Okay, so then moving on, let's learn a bit more about what is unit testing. So in a layman terms or a bit more basic version, we could say that it is a testing where we check each unit or a component of a software. So for example, if it's an Instagram, right, or a YouTube, let's take an example of Instagram itself. So in Instagram, there are multiple functionalities or features or components. So first could be login. So in a unit testing, we'll check first how if the login part is working properly or not, authentication is working fine or not. If it's working fine, then we'll move ahead. We'll check whether we are able to upload our pics, videos, and such stuff on our feed on or on our story. Once these two components are tested, then we move on to messaging, and then different features we test differently, and that is why it's very crucial. So we have seen multiple times getting very rare cases. I don't know whether you remember or not, but Google went down completely for 2-3 hours. So, so there are multiple steps of testing. The first is unit testing. Now we come
Fair
to
enough.
an E2 testing. But before moving to E2 testing, do you have any questions regarding unit testing? How we actually write unit test cases or such stuff?
And,
Okay.
they might be unfamiliar with this.
Yeah.
They might be unfamiliar with this top testing
Yeah.
for test.
Okay. So then I'll move to E2 testing.
Yes.
Okay. So there is something called testing pyramid at which at its base we have our unit testing, and using unit we can write unit testing through Mockito, Mocha, Cucumber.js. So everyone who follows EddieHub, or if you search about EddieHub, you will somewhere hear about Cucumber.js, because that is one of the testing framework or language that is that Eddie actually taught once. So similarly, for each samples or each language, we have multiple. For Python, we have PyTest. For JavaScript, we have Jest. For Java, we have JUnit. For Go, we have Go test, then mocking library. So there are multiple things which are required for just writing a single script. Now that is about our unit testing. It is generally at the base, because even though it is uh, advised to write unit tests, it's not always required to write more tests. Because if they are more, then you would actually uh, write less integration and then less E2. So integration unit comes in between the middle part. It is generally used when we are actually linking our backend to the front end to check whether everything is working fine or not, or integration is working properly as it intended to, or if there is anything that is breaking up. Now the third part comes in is E2E. E2E are generally most hard or complex ones to write, because once you have your unit one, because once you have your, okay, sorry, I skipped the question. What is integration unit? So it's not integration unit, it's called integration tests. In integration testing, we basically check it's a middleware where we basically check, okay, if the things are working fine or not. When we are actually integrating our modules from front end to back end, we check about data integrity, user-based scenarios, like as a software as a whole. So in unit, we check units as an individual, and in integration, software as a whole, right? So this is a place where most bugs comes in actually. Hope that resolves your query, Ayush.
And those who are having now, they can also unmute yourself and ask directly from animates.
Okay. So I was talking about E2E tests. Now E2E tests are generally at the top of the pyramid because it is hard to write, have low execution, and low execution speed. My fault. And it's very expensive to write and maintain. Because if we write a single script in a Postman, that script if we write in a E2E test in any framework, that would actually be converted into a line of 1,000 codes, maybe a code of 1,000 lines, maybe. That's why it's generally very hard to write and solve. So that's where the Keploy comes in. It helps you to generate test cases and data mocks from the API calls. So as I mentioned in the beginning, Postman and Hopscotch are the two platforms, except the curl, which are used to perform CRUD operations as well as write unit test cases, a small scripts in a format. So using those same platforms, you can generate API calls, and then on basis of that, you get your test cases, data mocks, and such stuff. Now moving to how it works, it is basically added as a proxy. So if you have your application ready, it could be any application on any language with any database. For example, if I take a, so you guys give me a sample, any framework, any database of your preference. You can write in a chat. I'll randomly pick two. Okay, MongoDB is one. And so I'm asking for a, so we have a MongoDB. I'm asking for any framework, language frameworks. It could be Java or such stuff, basically. Okay, so we got Postgres, SQL. Okay, we have MongoDB. I guess MongoDB is supported by 3 persons, so let's go with that. Still waiting on a framework, a language, a code language, any development language. Django, so it's Python. Okay, gotcha. So let's go with uh, Python Mongo works. So for example, you have any Django application that is using MongoDB as its database. Now you don't need to write any test cases or even write PyTest fixers and such stuff. All you have to do is start a Keploy and it will do all its work automatically. So you don't have to write 1,000 lines of code. Even you don't require PyTest, but if you write, it works well with it as well. But that's nice to see that there is a Django person. So I'm interested whether you actually use Django or you have just preferred Django. I've used it. That's nice. I find very Django developers to
Yes.
be very numbers. That's exciting to see. So that's how basically you generate your A2E test cases. And no matter what tool you use, in a recent days, it is very important. You generally get all your test files and test logs either in two formats, that is YML or JSON. Why? Because YML files can be used in your CI/CD pipelines. So, so basically, even if you are not, if you go in a deploy or production stage, it can be integrated based on whatever worked in your locals. So there's a very less chance of breaking and a high chance of passing through. And why JSON? Because it's very maintainable and easy to read. It's editable, and based on that, you can again create YMLs, and it can be used as a core database source, static database source. Python is my favorite language. Mine too. In fact. Okay, so before we move to giveaway, does anyone have any questions regarding Keploy, E2E, testing in general, unit testing, integration?
Anyone?
No one. So everyone is interested in the giveaway itself. Nice. Okay, I'll announce the steps for giveaway at the end. Before that, let's have a small topic conversations on resume reviews, or if you are in a first year, how to break into the programming journey. But for that, I would require a bit of interaction from you guys, because this thing can't go on one way, and I need to know like what you are into and what are your questions.
For a tool interaction, you can also unmute yourself and ask any queries regarding anything you have.
It could be related to your um, programming journey, normal resume talk if you have any or doubts, or finding internships. Yeah, Nathan, you can unmute yourself and ask. That would be great to have a talk. Like which language to start? Okay. So there isn't any specific language. There isn't, so let me go one by one. Hi.
Actually,
So there isn't any specific language with which you can start your journey. Uh, but I would prefer that you start with C or C++ if you're trying to break into the coding part, specifically DSAs and stuff. Why? Because it's a very old language, and to be honest, others are built around it. Whether even if you go into uh, database structures, uh, data structures and analysis, OS, networks. So C gets treated as a base language around which everything is built. And other than that, the concepts remain same. Whatever language you choose, only thing that gets changed actually is the syntax. That is that it's a to be honest, it's a generation of AI, right? You can ask the syntax in a with ChatGPT or any such stuff, and you can get the syntax. But what actually matters is your logic and the problem solving ability that you get yourself. So for that, I would prefer that C is best option. Um, if you have troubles with C, then you can get started with Python. It's very easy to get started with, but eventually you have to move on a higher upper level if you go into the coding part, specifically in a development part. Then, hmm. Uh,
use
so
most
why are
of
APIs paid while some are free? So paid APIs are generally provided with API keys and stuff, right? So when we host our services, or for example, if I have a database that lists out, okay, so Yeah, I have a database that contains the list of free APIs, and I have an endpoint called free APIs, right? It takes me a time to actually find those APIs working, maintaining. Other thing is hosting it. If I'm using any, you would find some are hosted on, mostly APIs or backend is hosted on Amazon, so those require credits. And to be honest, it depends upon the use cases of what the company is providing, like whatever who is the supplier of those APIs. But in most cases, they will always be paid because the backend part that is written requires extensive logical, and bug free to make it bug free. So that's why most of them will always be paid. You can find some free, I think, on a Rapid API. You could check once. Rapid API or Postman collection is one way to get to know about some free. Okay, how much CP is important? Okay, sir, if AI is becoming more smarter, coder, okay. Yes, sir, I use it. Yes, one by one. So does okay roadmap for backend development. Uh, for backend development, I think I pick one application like one development uh, framework. It could be Java, Golang, Python, or Node.js. Once you have figured out which language suits better for you, pick a DB. It could be MongoDB, MySQL, Postgres, and such stuff. Once you have figured out your two things, you can follow small guides or YouTube tutorials. I learned from YouTube tutorials. My first application was a blog website. It was in a Python itself using Flask.
Yeah, I also have started learning from YouTube tutorials.
Yeah, because if I talk about a specific roadmap for backend development, then there isn't one. Because you could find guides, tutorials, how to and get started for a basic app that requires to just a single endpoint with no logic or very less logic. But that is what not would be required when you go for actual implementations, right? Even if you're building your own project, that is something that you won't require. So that part comes from trial and error and building and contributing to OSs. You find a issue or you have an issue, you go there, you ask them, okay, I would like to take this up. Or if someone has already taken it up, you talk to them, you learn with them. That's the other way, because you can learn all the logics or follow all the guides, but still it won't ever be enough. Does competitive programming help in finding internships or placement? Yes. So uh,
एक हजार
CP, like CP is always going to be there. Um, so the base of CP is to check how how is your problem solving ability. How can you um solve a problem in a minimum time with a better efficiency and stuff. So by default, if you are going to break in a tech field, CP would be the must. CP, and then there is quantitative analysis. Those two things would always be there. It is not going to help in finding internships or placement. It's just prepping you for your internships and placement. Okay, Nathan, you have raised your hands. You can unmute yourself and ask.
सर हमें अभी सी लैंग्वेज सिखाई जा रही है, तो उसमें मतलब कितना करेंगे, मतलब खुद से ज्यादा पढ़े कि मतलब जितना सर करवा रहे हैं उतना ही करें?
देखो, सर जितना करा रहे हैं उतना कभी इनफ नहीं होगा, क्योंकि सर जो करा रहे हैं दैट इज टू बिल्ड और गिव यू गेट स्टार्टेड विद सी.
just basic.
Yeah, that's just a basic. So C is a very powerful language. कोई भी एप्लीकेशन हो, चाहे OS हो, whatever OS you are using, whatever DB you are using, it is all written on C. So the power of C is on a different level. So I would say whatever they're teaching you, learn, no doubt, but go ahead and if it has piqued your interest, the scene specific, then you could go and learn about networks, ethical hacking and such stuff, because C is required here. It's like a mandatory there. How much CP is important if I do DSA and work on some other skills? Can I skip CP? Okay, I'll take this up. Yeah, Nitin, you had any questions? Or you want to say something? Okay. Um, like I said, if you do DSA and you work on your skills, for example, it could be a web skill or web development, then you are essentially doing a CP. CP is competitive programming. It's a combination of DSA, to be honest. Uh, you could say it's a parallel to DSA. But what require is a bit more. You would require a knowledge of OS. So if you are doing a web development, right, then you should have a grasp, a basic grasp on networks. So you can actually figure out or get some bug fixes by knowing, okay, this is causing this error. Why is it causing this error? And how the HTTP works, how the packet works, what is TLS, what is SSL, what is SSH, and such stuff. But CP is a parallel to DSA. That cannot be. It's like you can't skip CP, but uh, do DSA. Sir, if AI are becoming more smarter, so it could affect the coder also to find job. What's your view on this? To be honest, it can never affect the job of coder, because even if you take an example of the most recent, it could be Test GPT, Chat GPT, even a Google Bard, or Bing. Bing also has an AI. They are nowhere near the level of coders. They can provide you with the snippets or a sample examples you could follow for the reference, but that's it. Those are only for the reference. You can't get a complete working code by them. So it it is it's like a helpful tool for the developers to figure out and fix issues, get a right guidance and reference and materials, but it's never going to replace their jobs. Specifically to the coders, your job is secured if you go in this field. So what is DSA, which you mentioned earlier? I have heard about it in many YouTube videos. So DSA is called data structures. Data structures, for example, I guess you would have used by now array or printed something, right? If you are in a coding, yeah, okay, first year is same for everything. So you would have used anything, right? You would have printed some arrays, uh, printed some stars. So all those things comes under the DSA. Now DSA is one of the building blocks for building your problem solving ability, in addition to DBMS, OS, and networks. So these four, uh, if I talk about it, these four are the basics for the coder's job. Can I use Next.js? Yeah, Next.js is just a framework that is built on uh, JS itself. So you can use Next.js to build APIs. I think you could use Next, Next, and there is one more Nest. So all these things you can
Okay.
use.
Yeah, both are a combination of front end and back end.
Yeah. So whether AI specialist or pro coder, which would be more demanded in future? Hmm. That's a nice one. So the demand for AI specialist and pro coder, if I talk about right now in the industry, the level of demand is same for both. Because if AI specialist is the job of AI specialist is to build models for case scenarios, to train data sets, test those data sets, build models, find, perform analysis, data managing, and that stuff. But using those data, pro coders would require to fulfill some targets, build some features, figure out, okay, this is where we want to go. So pro coder does not. So when we talk of in the perspective of industry, it's the pro coder is that's not a job, right? You talk about SDEs, engineering team, engineering leads, and such stuff. So no matter where you are at your initial stage, for example, if you join right now, you would be at SDE 1, right? But gradually you would have to go to a position that would require you to lead a team, to manage a team. The coding would be less. Managing, devising strategies, plans, features, that would be more. So if we talk about just SD1s and AI or a data analysis or consultants, the job requirement is same. Because if AI specialists are predicting something, you need someone to implement those changes or bring those changes. And that's the job of a SD or a engineering team. So which compiler is the best for coding? So you could use any compiler. That's the coding part. So execution time only gets faster. If I talk about IDE, I think you could
You can
get
pick
Jet or IntelliJ
uh,
because that would be nice. Otherwise, VS Code works fine.
yeah, VS Code works for every part.
Yeah. How to manage time in college? I hardly get any time to skill.
On my
Oh,
skills. And
so
this,
I
and
guess
this is the problem of most of the students.
yeah, this was the case with us even when we were in college.
Yeah.
So managing time in college is something that you have to build. It's a skill in itself, like a time management skill that we learn in our college thanks to our college professors and college work. But you could do one thing, like it was my practice. I used to generally do college related work either in the class itself or in a breaks. If I could not do it or I could not find times between the classes itself or a break, then I used to do it in the early in the morning before going to the college, you know. But yeah, it was a bit of juggling because I had to juggle learning something in my free time after evening once the classes are over, and then once I'm done with learning something or completing my pending work, then I used to go to learn something new. If you do both the things parallelly, like in a bit by bit, it works perfectly. Because at sometimes, for example, if you have exams, in that time you can focus more on studies and less on or pause learning something or whatever ongoing thing you are working on. Once you get a free time, you get classes and no tests are coming up, you could resume your development or learning part and then and slow down a bit on a college studies. But I'm not saying to just stop the college studies. You can do it in a bits by bits. Some things today, some things tomorrow. That's how you generally manage the times. And if you get a free time, you can go visit to um, the city to visit your friends and such stuff.
But just for fun and even just for a breakup of both the stuff, handling both the stuff together.
Weekends are there for you just to, go through things, learn and such stuff. Basically enjoy, take a break a little. Okay, so which resources we can use to learn programming? I think that's a very specific one, but I would prefer Gigs for Geeks or Code Academy. There is also Solo Learn. So these are the three that you can try to learn programming and precisely focus on Gigs for Geeks. Or once you have a basic theory of how the things are working, then you can start practicing on Hacker, Hacker Earth, um,
Yeah,
by taking
hacker or hacker rank.
yeah, Hacker Rank, Hacker Earth, both works. So basically, you will get to know like what is your level. Getting started with easy, then medium, and then difficult or hard one. And if everything goes well, you can earn your certificates as well. So that's a plus point in Hacker Rank.
Yeah, the W3 schools is also good.
Yeah, W3 School, Solo Learn, Lead Code. Lead, I would say go to Lead Code and Code Shift a bit later when you are comfortable in solving medium problems at HackerRank, to be honest.
Yeah. Yeah, I've also started from HackerRank or HackerRank, then I will shift it to these platforms.
Yeah. So would you recommend web dev as a career path, as there are websites like Wix.com and which can make a functional website already? So web dev path isn't something very specific. In website development, there are three parts, sorry. First is backend development, one is front end development, and the third is full stack. So websites like Wix can help you with the simple front end development part, but still it won't make it completely functional. So when we talk about functional websites or it's an e-commerce, e-commerce works fine, but you would still require database and such stuff. Now there are those plugins, you have to set those plugins and work. So basically you can add Wix.com as a skill. You are a Wix developer. That is also a skill part that I have generally seen. WordPress, Wix and such stuff. But if you want to break in a web development, I would say first figure out like which is the best suit for you. Whether you wanna go with front end, back end, or a full stack. By default, because of the new startups and tech such as AppRite, Supabase, nhost, even the front end folks can work as a full stack developer because they get an idea of back end and their databases as well. How to manage balance between CP and dev?
Okay.
It's like a question with college. You have to figure out a slot for you that works best, in which you can. It's like a buffer time. Everyone has a simple buffer time. So use those buffer time to learn and go through materials, or you can take some extra time in your weekend if you don't have anything planned. So in those times, you can work on a development, learn development skills. But CP would be mostly covered by your college and extra effort that you do on weekends to learn something new, or basically if you are using HackerRank and such stuff. So those will help you in covering CP. Web3 school as a resource is a very good resource, to be honest. Everyone prefers Web3, V3, sorry, W3 schools.
Yes.
So three websites again, which you mentioned earlier. So that's Geek for Geek, Solo Learn, W3 schools, right? What should I
What?
focus on if I'm interested in blockchain? That's nice. So if you're interested in a blockchain, I would suggest to first get started with JavaScript itself, because blockchain is very easy to build or deploy if you are using a JS. I think the primary major codes are written and Solidity.js itself for the contracts. That's as far as I know. So you can get started with JS, learn the basis, get a bit more involved in Solidity, and once you are comfortable with the Solidity, then you can move into Ethereum and such. So I have to figure it out. You can also check it once, because Ethereum has something called Ether or some playground where it helps
Yeah.
you to build apps. So there
It
is
is.
yeah, Ethereum SDK, Polygon SDK, uh, and Matic. I think okay, that's by the Polygon itself. So you can get started, build small D apps, and then start with your blockchain journey.
Okay. Any more questions?
I don't think so. Okay, then let's go to a giveaway part. So I guess by now everyone would be up for the giveaway, right?
So how much progress we need to learn?
First year, how
So
much programming do we need to learn? What should I focus on if I'm interested in game dev? Okay, so I'll take the first year one. In first year, how much programming does we need to learn? There isn't any specific volume. I guess in first year, everyone are required to learn queues, linked list, arrays, and that's the stuff, that is the pretty much stuff that is required and are taught by the professor itself or themselves. So what should I focus on if I'm interested in the game dev? So there are two platforms, basically Unity and Unreal. If you are interested in the game dev, I would say go with Unreal Engine. Yeah, it takes a bit of time to get used to, but multiple apps are built on Unreal itself. If you are if you have a experience or is have a even a bit knowledge of JS, then I would say go to Unity. Either way, these are the two platforms that would help you a lot in building either desktop games or mobile app games, or if I talk about a recent scenario with AR/VR, then Unreal, to be precise, helps a lot in building those kinds of apps. Yeah. So anyone else have any questions for getting
wait,
internship
internship in
experience?
second, third year.
Hmm. So if you are in second and third year, basically you are taught and are expected to know about trees and graphs. Other than that, um, like the major focus is not on DSA. It is basically around DAA. So there is called, so DSA means data structures and algorithms, right? And DAA is called basically data analysis and of algorithms. In DA, we learn about execution time of sorting, graphs, search, which is best, which is worse, the case scenario, the time complexity, the space complexity. So by the time you are in end of second year, you would be uh, getting a hands on with this itself by the college. So I would say if you have a basic understanding of how for loop works, uh, the execution time of for loop, linked list, simple array like linear search and binary search, with the combination of competitive programming that you do or the problem solving ability that you have built, that is enough. Because no one goes and asks like, okay, this is a tree, you have to convert the tree, but it is asked like which how you can solve this. So you should know like which is better in which scenario, and if there is any constraint, how to fulfill that constraint. So using blueprints in UE, you can use blueprints in UE, but I would suggest to build from scratch, to be honest. Because if you build from scratch, it's your code, you know how it's gonna work, and similarly, you can build something of it on your own. Okay, then let me know if my okay, I'll show my screen right now. Let me know if my screen becomes visible. So the step of entering in a giveaway is two steps. You have to first star mark the repository. I'll share the links with you, and you can see yourself getting added here. Once you star mark it, I'll refresh it, and you can see you're getting your name's getting on the list itself. So that's step one. And step two is to share about what you got to learn today, or something that you found interesting, or and post it on social such as LinkedIn and Twitter. So we'll take the names from there and the star marks if you have star mark. So both are necessary. If you haven't star mark but posted, you won't be counted. If you have uh, not star mark but posted, then you won't be counted. So let me refresh and check the new names if there are any. Okay, so you can see your names here, I think. So it gets updated each time. You can check here. Okay, so that's pretty much it. Do you have any other questions?
Anyone, anyone having questions regarding programming or anything else? Oh, find internships. Yes. So there is one question
Yeah.
from Keher.
How
How
to
to
find it?
internships?
So, like, there are two ways to find the internships. Uh, First is through the connections that you have that are already working in some place. Other is through websites such as LinkedIn. You can find some on Twitter. Then there is Angels. Uh, I've
Well,
internship works.
Internships also.
Yeah, but I would recommend to be a cautious if you are applying on Intenshala, because
Okay.
yeah, there were many folks who got scammed by the companies listed on the Intenshala. But yeah, I would say if you are looking or trying to break in, first go to the LinkedIn. You can find many internships there or one or the other programs that would help you to get into the internship. So for Unreal Engine, which language should I be learning? Uh, so you're very specific to the game dev itself, right? But yeah, C++ is a mandatory when I talk about Unreal Engine. To be honest, uh, go with the C++. That will help you a lot.
Anything more? Like any more doubts? Like we are not having more doubts regarding programming yet.
Mhm.
So any wish, any if you would like to any brief your journey of becoming a mentor in TSOC and how you have become a developer at Keploy, you can share your journey also.
Surely. So even I started my journey in my third year of college. Um, so that was a lockdown period, so we had a bit of chance to explore different things, right? I started my journey as an open source contributor. That's the way I would always recommend someone to break into either the development part or their internship or a full-time career as well. Because when I talk about open source contribution, the code part is a small part of it. When even if you go and talk or see any open source company or product, you would see that they would have an engineering team, product team, community team, marketing, sales, and such stuff. So it acts as an actual company. The only difference is you can directly contribute to the company and they will see it. So
Yeah,
that's how I got started. I started at in my lockdown. I got to learn about what is community management, what is learned a few skills around React, JS, Python, Mongo. Took parts in hackathons, and there I got to you know got to meet new companies which are open source.
Yeah.
So what I did was, once I got to know about them, I tried to go into the hackathons and use their products or reuse their whatever functionality they have into my app, and then submit it. So it kind of helped me build my portfolio as well as the skills. Plus, it was interesting to see that even the company notices, because there is something called SEO backlinks. So if you're using something, mentioning them, you get SEO. So the companies also track those. So through there, I got reached out by Savo Labs. It was a company that was solving a no code or no OTP basically for the password authentication 2FA sort of stuff. So there I joined as a developer advocate, and that was basically my start through hackathons and open source contribution, and slowly it evolved into the community management side. Then I got to work at a commerce that is basically a metaverse. It was very interesting to dive from Web 2 to Web 3, how it works, what is the ecosystem and environment there. And then right now I'm back into the testing field, APIs related into the Keploy. That was again by the same programs I found. I got to know about Keploy on LinkedIn, and through where I applied, slowly uh, became a full-time developer at the Keploy itself. So that's the part.
Cool. And like you have started your journey from open source. Like yeah, open source plays a crucial role in your journey.
Definitely, and whoever I'm seeing right now, whether it's Pratyuman, Aditya Oberoi, Siddharth, Kunal, at the start, I have noticed that even they, or at some point of at their journey, each developer have contributed to the open source, because that's the best way to find, learn, and get noticed, to stand out basically.
Yeah. We also will make new connections and new skills from open source because it is like just a curious things. What
Yeah.
information we got from any repo or open source any website, like
Could you repeat? I got breaked off.
I've just told that from open source we will get to so much information. Like it is like anything we will get from any repositories or any open source project. We will get new features and new things or new skills, new ideas of bringing something innovative.
So that's pretty much it about the open source, and it's what should I say? Leveraging the open source, to be honest, because this is in our time it was still something that was under the development part, but right now every third company is an open source and they have a very good PR looking for it. So that's the now's the time to leverage those.
Yeah, cool. So anyone having more questions or we can just finish up here?
I guess we can finish
Okay.
it up.
Yeah, we can finish up. Thank you, Animesh Pathak sir, for having a nice session on the backend API. We will get something new to learn for sure.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Thanks for having me. Thanks for you folks who stayed back. Uh, Make sure that you have star marked and posted on the socials, and we'll announce the giveaways there itself. So generally the entry for the giveaway is valid around 1 hour after the session. So it will be by 9:15. Let's extend it to by 10 o'clock.
Oh, okay, go check out and star mark the repositories of Keploy. Thank
Thank you guys
Okay,
for coming. Thanks for organizing the session.
okay. Thank you all.